All right, we're rolling, right? Yeah. We're rolling. All right, guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stick Talk Podcast. We had a little bit of a delayed start here. There's like some internal arguments going on around what episode number this is, so we're going to let you guys decide. I think it's episode 21. You think it's 20?
20-something. We're
20-something. We're definitely in the 20s. Regardless, we've made it this far. We appreciate all your support, and we're going to keep it rolling either way. Episodes aren't as important as our guest. And we're really excited to welcome Pat Walls to the show. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Pat is got a lot of wisdom that he's going to share with us here today. You're the founder of Starter Story.
I have a lot of wisdom because I'm old.
Because you're old?
Way older.
You say you're old, but you look younger than we do.
23.
23?
24. Yeah. I'm the old one of the group.
He's old. He's old.
I'm 32.
Just flip it around.
So
you're
like,
our age.
So fucking old. No, but I love to meet guys like you that are like young and crushing it. Because when I was 23,
you don't look 32.
Thank you. When I was 23, I was like trying to make it in the corporate world. I wasn't even thinking about starting a business. So
that's super interesting. So when did you first find entrepreneurship? Because your entire business model is revolved around sharing entrepreneurial stories, right?
I was always kind of like an entrepreneur. Like, you know, when I was like 16 or 15, I started a lawn mowing business. And then when I was in college, I started an iPhone repair business and like had a nice little side hustle. But I never really thought, or I didn't really have any entrepreneurs in my family or anything like that. So I didn't really think like I like dreamed of doing it, but I didn't think that I was capable because back then, like there wasn't like, you couldn't just like go on Twitter and like, you know, connect with other entrepreneurs. It was like a very like established formal thing, or at least in my view or in my circles is like, I thought, okay, maybe one day I'll do it, but it's not something that I could like start right now.
So when was the decision to start, right? Because you mentioned when you were around our age, you were in corporate. So like you got the degree, you went to corporate America. Was there like a burnout phase or what happened there?
Yeah, pretty much. I was in around your age, so 24, 25. I was dabbling in corporate. I was looking for the right career for me. I started in accounting, and then I switched to finance, and then I switched to software engineering.
Jeez.
So I was just trying to find, I was just trying to find something that I actually enjoyed doing. And then after like 3 careers, I finally like was like, okay, this isn't it for me. I want to find something that like, I felt like I got good at those things like pretty quickly. And then I was like, okay, what's the next challenge? Yeah. So after a few careers, I realized, okay, maybe the career thing's not for me. I want to work for myself. I want to do my own thing. So around 25, 26 years old, so around 2015, 2016, I started like thinking, okay, maybe I could start a business. And then I started, I was dabbling, like me and my buddies tried to start a B2B SaaS product and get into Y Combinator. We were living in San Francisco at the time.
Okay. So did that environment have like an impact on you, would you say? Just seeing other people around you doing the startup stuff. Y Combinator obviously was a really popular thing at the time. It still is. Yeah. That had to give you guys some motivation and inspiration.
Yep. Yeah, I was living in San Francisco, and my buddy that I ended up starting the company with, he had already started a business, so I was getting a little bit of exposure to him. He was running like a pet store in San Francisco. It was super random. But yeah, that's when I first took the pill or whatever. Yeah. And then building that business, building that company, even though it failed, and it was, we spent like 6 months trying to build a YC company. It was just the most like exhilarating, fun experience for me that I was like, okay, I know I want to do this.
You got hooked.
Yeah, got hooked, yeah.
And it sounds like with that initial startup, it was with friends or with at least a team. Yeah. And then from my understanding, when you went and started Starter Story, it was more of like a solopreneur vibe, and that's kind of still what you're known for, which I think is really cool. So maybe touch on like what that was like, or what the decision process was like to say I want to venture out on my own and try something without, you know, founders or a team.
Yeah, it's a couple things. I remember when I was first started, I wanted that business to work so bad, and I felt like the people that I was working with, not necessarily they didn't, because they were my friends and they didn't want it, but I felt like I wanted it more than they did. And when it ended up failing, I was the guy who was like in my room nights and weekends, like, how do we figure out how this is going to grow? How are we going to, and then
you were the one without the backup plan.
Yeah.
You were just like burn all boats. Like I need something to work.
Yeah. I was definitely more invested mentally. than those guys. And you know, those guys are my friends and stuff like that. But I think that was when I realized that, okay, this isn't going to work. Having co-founders didn't really work for me. I just want to figure out something. Like you said, I didn't have a backup plan. I was like, I cannot work in corporate anymore. I will just do something on my own now. And that's when I started Starter Story. And I was like, okay, if I can start something that I can do on nights and weekends, which is like more of a blog, and I can do it myself, and in the process, because I'll be interviewing entrepreneurs and talking to entrepreneurs, I'll be able to meet people, potentially meet a new co-founder, find a new product idea. And then that's when so I didn't really start it like thinking that this was going to be the big business that I was going to start. It was just something that to fill my time with and find something else. And then it ended up being the business.
That's so cool to think about.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it's such a drastic shift from B2B SaaS to blog. So it was more of just like, hey, I'm going to interview other people until that light bulb goes off. And you're just like, oh, this is the business?
Yeah.
So how long, I guess, from when you started Starter Story until you realized like, oh shit, I really have something here that I should focus on full time?
A long time. Almost, I don't know these. If I started it in 2017, and then I really realized that it was the business that I wanted to go all in on, took 2 years actually.
Wow.
And I'd actually already quit my job by that point. Cause like Starter Story did well in the beginning, and I made like, back then this is like, was more crazier than it is now, but I was making like $3,000 a month with a side project, which to me was like, well, okay, that's enough to actually quit my job, because I was really bad with money and stuff like that. I had a lot of student loan debt, and I also had some credit card debt from this coding boot camp I did because I became an engineer. And once I started Starter Story, I was able to basically pay off that debt because I had a full-time job and I was paying off that debt.
I saw that tweet. That was so cool. The credit card debt?
Yeah. That was in like 2018 or something like that. But when I paid off that credit card debt and my student loan debt, really, I felt like free.
Yeah.
And then I got like a $12,000 check from one of our sponsors, one of our advertisers. And at that moment I had like $12,000 in my bank account. And I was like, holy shit, I've never seen this much money in my life. Like nowadays it's nothing.
There's not a negative sign next to it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
So walk us through what exactly Startup Story is, because a $12,000 check from an advertiser is like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. So what exactly is the whole concept behind it? Why was an advertiser willing to cut you a $12,000 check?
Yeah.
What's the whole story behind it?
Yeah, so Starter Story is a place where you can go and see how people are building successful online businesses or like side hustles. You can go on, you can see interviews of founders, how they came up with their idea, how they grew it, what their financials are, just lots of stuff. If you're interested in starting a business, you can go read these like basically case studies or playbooks. That's what it is. So I started doing that, created a newsletter, and this one sponsor, this advertiser, they wanted to get in front of our audience. And actually this was like that was really the first big break for Starter Story, is like most people will approach you and say, hey, I want to sponsor your newsletter, advertise on your newsletter for $300, maybe $100, whatever, something small. This guy came to me. He's the CEO of Klaviyo, which is a big company. You might have heard of them.
Yeah, pretty big.
Holy shit. They're probably way smaller back then.
They're super small back then. And he said, man, I really like what you built. I want to just like support, how can we support you? Because I wasn't really making any money at the time or anything like that. And then I said, okay, well, you could sponsor the newsletter. He's like, how about we sponsor your newsletter for 12 months? And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, let me know how much that costs. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I would charge maybe, I don't know, $300 a month. And then I went to my buddy and told him like, yeah, he's sponsoring. He's like, you should just ask for like 3 times more than that, because, and I was like, okay, all right, well, so I went to him, I said, hey, it'll be $1,000 a month times $12,000. And he responded, I was so,
like, let me get a calculator real quick. Let's see what that adds up to.
I was so scared to send that email. And then I sent it. This is a few months into starting it too. It wasn't right after I first started it, but it was the first big break. And he replied back like immediately saying, sure, sounds good. And then
did you have like an immediate like, shit, I should ask for more?
No.
Okay.
It felt so crazy at the time that I didn't even think to. That was nuts at the time, because I was, again, like I told you, I had negative money.
Yeah.
And so finally, when I got he asked me for like, I don't know, like some Chase login thing, and like they wired it directly into my bank account, which was just crazy. and I quit my job like a week later.
That's
and
awesome.
moved to Thailand and said, okay, I'm going to build this. I have enough money to live if I move home or move like as a digital nomad or something like that, and I never have to work corporate again, I'll figure it out how to do it. But that's the story of the $12,000 check.
Wow.
That's so cool, man. And like Starter Story is all interviews, right? Like it's all focused around other people's stories and journeys to success and even their failures along the way in entrepreneurship. Was there like an inspiration? Because Christian and I have a similar background, or at least a similar starter story, if you will, where in college we were interested in entrepreneurship. And so we didn't really know what business we wanted to start. So we figured, let's just do a podcast. And that actually became our business, in which we had no expectation for. And that sounds like how Starter Story was started. So was there, and for us, the inspiration was like Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee. Like we just saw other people doing this style of interview that we also wanted to do. Was there some inspiration like that for you as well?
Yeah. There's a website called Indie Hackers.
Indie Hackers.
Yep. I remember seeing that when I was starting that YC company. I remember like it was like, you know, we got rejected from YC and all that stuff. I remember reading Indie Hackers, and they just had like these cool stories of people that were making $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month. And I really liked, so I just was a huge fan of that website and knew the guy that started it. And so that was a big inspiration, and what inspired me to start a website like it, because I knew there was something there. And they had gotten acquired by Stripe as well. So my original idea was to do what they were doing, and essentially we copied them in the beginning to do what they were doing. But for my first like niche was e-commerce. So we started only interviewing e-commerce companies, DDC, that kind of thing. So that was a big inspiration. And then people that inspired me, I'm a huge fan of Peter Levels. I don't know if you know him. Yeah.
Levels.io?
Yeah, Levels.io.
On Twitter?
Yep.
I think I've seen.
Yep. He was like probably my biggest, in terms of a person, not a business. He is my biggest inspiration. Just the way that he was able to like build products by himself with no employees and live anywhere he wants. And yeah, that was a big inspiration.
So that's always been your vibe, the digital nomad, the indie hacker, like solopreneur type gig, right? Which is super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've gone away more than that. I think I still have a lot of the values of that, like owning your own time, not taking VC money, that sort of stuff. But we have a team now, and I'm not a solopreneur.
Gotcha.
I have a team of about 5 people. But I still have those values, I think. And I still think like it's amazing what people can do as a solopreneur. And a lot of our audience also is solopreneurs, or people that want to start their own. You know, they're 9-to-5ers who want to start a business and quit their jobs. And a lot of that is being like solopreneur, or at least starting out as a solopreneur.
Yeah.
Let you light your cigar there.
Yeah, it's always funny with these episodes. Like you could just see like the guest is like holding their cigar, like it's not lit, and they're like talking. And they're kind of like,
well, it loses the light after you talk for a little bit. And then, you gotta keep sorry.
So now we're sitting here. It's 2023, and you have what, 300,000 people reading this thing almost every week. Is that correct? Or
yeah. About 1.5 million a month. That's how I would. That's how.
So
website visitors.
Yeah,
which is crazy. And I guess my question, obviously, like you've had insane output and just like extreme consistency. I saw that you guys had like 4,428 case studies on your website before, which just seems like an ungodly number. When did it start clicking, and like how did you guys start driving traffic to the page? Were you really good at SEO, or like what was like the main traffic source for Starter Story?
Yeah, so it's a longer journey of how we got there, but in the beginning it was Reddit. How we first got traction was Reddit.
Okay.
So I would take the case studies and I would put them in a Reddit-friendly format. So I guess take away like some of the images, don't like, self-promote too much, and I would repost them in the r/entrepreneur subreddit. I don't know if you guys have ever been on Reddit on that. That's a decently popular subreddit. And then they would blow up on there. And that's how I got the initial traction. The initial 1,000, 10,000 email subscribers was through that. And that was in 2018.
And but what's a case study, just for the audience? Is it like an actual case study for your business, or is that just kind of what the name you gave to the interviews you were doing?
Yeah. It's a case study. It's an interview. Yeah, interview with an entrepreneur. So we'd post for example, a guy is running a company selling bidets, and we would put on the Reddit post, I make $10,000 a month selling bidets. And then it'd be an interview which would tell you exactly how he did it, how he came up with the idea, how he grew it, et cetera, et cetera. So it has a lot of value in it. Yeah. And the Redditors love that. And then it would like get a lot of upvotes on Reddit. And then some people would come to my website who are like the super fans. And then they would subscribe to the email list and then become more longtime readers and come to the website.
So did you ever find that leveraging the guests' audience helped you get a lot of traffic? Like, for example, if you have on, I don't know, Elon Musk or Gary Vee, you're going to get millions of people from their audience coming to your website. Was that like a strategy for you, or did that happen all by itself, or do you not even rely on?
No, it was never really, the people that we interviewed are like people that started small businesses, so they don't even have like big audiences.
Wow.
So like there would be a couple times where maybe that would give us some audience, but our thing has always been interviewing like real business owners that are in the trenches, not necessarily, influencers or like big names.
Yeah.
Like, we've had some big names, but a lot of the big names don't want to do interviews with us because a requirement of our website and a reason why it was bigger or why it kind of blew up in the beginning is that if you want to share your story, you have to share how much money you're making as a business or how much revenue you have as a business. And a lot of people don't want to share that. So they'll say, no, sorry, we don't want to do an interview, or, a lot of people just don't want to share. Just a lot of people won't do it. So,
why was that? Like, what was the idea there, or the mindset behind asking that question? And then, what's the qualification process as well? Like, how do you ensure to your viewers or website visitors, like, this is real, or is it more of just like an honor system?
Yeah. It's self-reported, so take everything with a grain of salt. And what was the first question?
Just like, what was the motive behind asking people like how much you're making? Because I feel like some people like it's a sensitive question, right?
Yeah. The motive, well, when I first did it, we did a few interviews that had it and a few that didn't have it. And then I made a decision after like 12 interviews, okay, I think we need to take a stand on this and remove the old ones or ask them to add their revenue and then only have people that are sharing their revenue. And I think when you're starting something new, especially in a blog, a lot of bloggers have, I can just start a blog about entrepreneurship. I'll start a blog about pets or whatever, cigars. You have to do something that makes you stand out or do something different. And that was the goal with it, is that if people come to this website, it's not just another blog. It has something unique or, I don't know, ballsy about it. And then also, like, if you're going to read a story about a small business, it's not Gary Vee, it's not Elon Musk. Who cares about their business if you don't know how much money they're making?
That's
like,
a great point.
Like if
it's the point of business, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you
the bidet example is perfect.
Yeah.
Because nobody wakes up as like a fifth grader and you're like, I want to clean 1 million butts
Yep.
when I'm older, right? Like, it's only if it's making
exactly
people a lot of money. And that format probably worked really well on Reddit as well, correct?
Yep, exactly. It's the amount of money you're making and ridiculous product or boring product or something you wouldn't expect to make a lot of money. That combination.
That was the formula.
Yeah, exactly.
What
What
are some other weird ones?
Okay, my favorite one, and you asked me, so I had to prepare for it. But this guy sells chocolate molds of penises as pranks.
Christian, what's the business name again? You remember?
Adam and Eve.
Christian's your #1 affiliate. Go ahead.
So it looks like big black dicks, basically, because it's chocolate.
No white chocolate?
No, they have white chocolate too.
That's the small ones, the kisses.
Can you get a caramel filling?
No.
This went off the rails really quickly. All right,
So-
how much money does he make?
He was making $25,000 a month at the time. I think he makes like $1 million a year now or something crazy,
Wow.
or maybe even more. I don't even
When you
know.
say a mold,
It's called I
don't even want. No, okay.
It's basically looks like a
how good is
dildo.
the chocolate?
I didn't try it. It looks like a dildo, but it's made of chocolate, and you send it as a prank to your friends.
Gosh, you guys.
It's called Dick at Your Door. And
I think there
that
was
was
one
the best one.
I think I saw one that's like shit in a box where you could like ship real dog shit to your friends.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
like,
yep,
yo,
yep.
That's
so
probably
out of
like
pocket.
illegal, no?
I don't know.
Real feces?
I don't know.
That-
Something similar to that. Though.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like the prank stuff does really well.
Yeah,
just
prank
'cause it can
stuff.
be marketed
Yeah, this
super
other guy
easily.
does like greeting cards that never stop, that never shut up. So it does happy birthday. You know those cards that make that sing happy birthday, but it never stops. And the only way you can stop it is by physically breaking it with a hammer, or like it like even survives underwater and shit. He's crushing it too.
It's crazy, bro. I think the coolest takeaway from like what you do and all the stories that you've shared over the years is like there's unlimited ways to make money, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
one of the things that I really admire about like you and your business concept is it really puts, I feel like, the art of asking questions at the forefront, because that's really what produces like these stories and the intrigue from the audience. And so like we have a podcast too, and I feel like as podcasters, the number one thing you're thinking about throughout the episode is like what's a good question to ask. And so maybe talk to us about some of like your favorite questions to ask entrepreneurs or business owners that have led to some of these really cool stories or reactions, if you will.
I mean, we really have a formula for what we ask, because every business is essentially the same at the core of it. Is, you know, you have an idea, you have a background, you have some sort of story, you have an idea, you have to turn that idea into a product, then you have to figure out how to grow that product or grow that business. And then you also, you know, can go over like operations of the business, also like advice you have for other founders. So a lot of our structure is the same. But then the answers are always different. And we do a lot of follow-ups. Once someone submits their interview, it's not as simple as we just post it on the website. We go through it and we ask for follow-up. So if they mention something, we will say, okay, can you talk more about that? And we're always about like, can you get into the specifics of things? Because we have that case study format. How can you, like, okay, if you say you're good at SEO or you've grown through SEO, tell us specifically what blog posts like have blown up the most, or like what's your content strategy, or how often are you posting content? So I really like to get into the specifics of stuff, especially because it's written. But one thing we did is like, I would always take, especially when I was initially posting on Reddit, I would look at all the comments of what people said of further questions they had, and then use those as questions in future interviews, or like get an understanding of what people really want to know.
Yeah.
So
like crowdsourced, essentially.
Yeah, crowdsource questions, and that's how I've done it. But I don't really have a good answer for how to find good questions, because it's not really on the fly. We're not doing podcasts. We're doing written stuff.
It's all preset. It's all formulaic, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And the number one goal is to get granular with the detail and not like big lofty ideas.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yep.
And that's why it does so well, is because people can go in and get a very clear understanding of what this business does, how much it makes, how they did it, what works, what didn't.
So what do you think the main reason a reader comes onto your site? Is it for entertainment? Like it's the morning newspaper that they read, or, you know, the thing that they start their day with? Is it to learn how to start a specific business? Is it to get inspired? Like, what do you think is the main attraction for a reader to come onto the site and kind of learn about these stories?
I think a lot of people go, well, our audience is like the 9-to-5er, the guy who or girl who wants to do their own thing, wants to create their own idea, but they don't have, they're looking for the idea. So a lot of it serves as inspiration.
Yeah.
So like you can get inspired, like, oh, like you said, like this, you know, bidet is making $10,000. You can make $10,000 a month with bidets or chocolate dicks or whatever. So I like to see. I think a lot of people go on for inspiration, and then also because it again has that.
Yeah.
To see the number, the revenue number, to get, and we try to go as deep as possible in metrics of the business, profit, cost of acquisition, all that sort of stuff. So
have you ever interviewed a business owner that started their business from reading your site?
Yeah. There's a lot of people. I get a lot of people who DM me and say like, "Oh, I read your Reddit interviews back in the day," or like, "You inspired me to start a business." Yeah, I get that all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
gotta be
the
a good
best
feeling.
of fulfillment ever.
That's the best. Like, it's better than any sort of money. Like, even when you're first starting, you guys might have experienced something like this. When you're first starting out, you haven't made any money yet, but someone just like DMs you or emails you and says like, "Thanks, your shit was useful."
Yeah.
Or something like
that's
that. That's better than any.
I think
any
even
sort of
still,
money.
even when you get into making the money, obviously that part's great, but like being able to help other people and have an impact is also a really cool feeling. For sure.
Yeah, it's the thing about consulting that I love. It's like the student wins and the big deals they close almost feel better at this point than the own big deals you close.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a good sign that you're in the right industry.
Yep.
If you're, have like that service mindset.
Yeah.
Another question I had is like, do you ever remember interviewing a business that was super early days and they blew up to become like a massive company or a pretty successful venture-backed company?
God, I had to think. Oh, Brewmate is a good one. You know that?
I've seen the founder on social media.
Yeah, Dylan Jacob. We interviewed him pretty early, and now his company, last time we talked, was making 120 million a year.
Wow.
With they sell. Have you heard of them, Brewmate? You know what they do?
No, like him. I've seen it like online.
Yeah,
it keeps like your drink cold.
Yeah,
warm.
beer koozies. Yeah. You know, like when you go on a. I see him like when I went boating one time. Everyone's got like they put their beer can in there to keep the beer cool or the drink or whatever.
Yes. Okay, I have seen that.
It's like metal beer koozies, cups, drinkware, coolers, that sort of stuff. That was his business.
Were they just getting started?
When we interviewed him, he was doing $1 million a month, and that was like one of our biggest interviews. That
like
we
when
ever
you got
did.
him at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was doing $1 million a month, and now he's doing 12 million. God, there's so many that I'm probably just not thinking
So
of right
when
now.
is the starter story Shark Tank coming?
Dude, that's a good question. I mean, I'm trying to find like a format. You guys know that I'm doing this like interviewing entrepreneurs format, like we did with Daniel and stuff like that. One guy told me to take, if you want to find a good format, take like something that works really well on TV, like Shark Tank, and try to create the social media version of that format. Like MTV, MTV Cribs was huge, and now that guy goes in people. Have you seen that guy that goes in people's houses in New York? He took that format from MTV Cribs and put it onto social media. So I'm looking for something like that. I don't know if you guys have any ideas of like how can you take an entrepreneur format, TV, Shark Tank. There's one called The Profit, Bar Rescue. How can I take
Bar
that?
Rescue.
Yeah, I don't really
you
watch
marry
it.
like Kickstarter and Shark Tank, like you'll have like a competition and the readers can invest at like a small level and like small percentage of royalties.
I also loved the one that Grant Cardone did, the Undercover Billionaire, where they basically like completely delete your identity. Like he had to shave his head and everything and started with like $1.
Yes, Undercover Billionaire.
Like how fast could he get his first $1 million?
Yeah.
Just to like prove like he's legit.
Yeah.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
So something like that, something like Shark Tank. What else did you say? Kickstarter?
I was saying like marrying the two, where like Kickstarter is like you show this cool idea, everybody pitches in, but like having it in more of a competitive format where it's a bunch of ideas up against each other.
I think they had an Apple TV show like that one time.
They did.
Yeah.
Who was
like
on that?
It was like Ashton Kutcher or like one of
Gary
those.
Vee was definitely on that. It was like apps and.
It was an app-based thing. It was like.
I remember watching a couple episodes.
I don't think it was successful, or it was. They canceled it.
They would have been running it still, right?
Yeah.
If it was. Yeah. Ted Lasso took over instead, which is all good. Yeah. Not complaining about that.
So we've kind of been talking about theoretical what's next, but what is actually next on the agenda? Like, I guess first, how far from where you started till now, how has the evolution been in terms of iterations and adding new revenue streams, features, things for your readers, and then where do you think it's going to go from now moving forward?
It's a good question. I mean, if I had a good answer, it's tough right now with the economy because I feel like the ad model is really hard.
Yeah.
For a business like us, like if you want to, half of our revenue is from advertising, so people that want to pay to advertise on our newsletter, and half of it is from subscription, so people subscribe so they can read all the case studies. I'm leaning more towards going away from advertising because it's more of a business model that's prone to fluctuations. Like it can go down really bad, it can go up, and I don't really like that very much. So I guess the next phase for the business is to figure out how we can grow the side of the business that's where customers pay us directly for our product.
And your product is, you're saying like the case studies, the information essentially?
Yeah.
Content, right?
Yeah, content. And like similar to like maybe like New York Times, how they have, you can read their content, but you pay to subscribe to them. We make half our revenue through a model like that. But how can we grow that? How can we make that bigger? So maybe it's giving people like courses or
sell a course on how to start a business.
Yeah, yeah.
You have a course.
We
now
have a couple
on,
courses. Yeah.
What's the course you have now?
I did
SEO.
SEO course, which I did in late 2020, and then now I'm doing an email course, which is coming out in like 2 weeks.
Nice.
Or 1 week, and so yeah, that's part of it. That can be part of it when you sign up. So we made some extra money through our courses, but it's not the main way that we make money.
one thing that's super interesting about you, like when I was doing some research, you've documented the journey really well. And I think really what I mean to say is you've stayed very, very consistent with content for a long period of time. And that's easier said than done, especially in the beginning when you're not getting like that external validation. Like for us with our podcast, like we know like theoretically in our heads that if we keep doing this every single week, showing up, putting out good content, bringing on cool guests, that we're going to be big, right?
Yeah.
Or bigger than we are now. But like in the moment, it's still like you have those doubts like, oh, like, am I really going to be getting this many people to watch? And so I guess what was that conversation like with yourself early on? Were there times where you were like, this isn't worth it anymore, or I'm going to stop putting out content for a while? Because you've stayed very, very consistent. And if you look at the graph, I think you shared somewhere with the website visitors, it's just like the S&P, right? It just very consistently over time. It goes up and down a little bit, but it continues overall to go up, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say, like in hindsight, it's 2020 like that. But as I didn't really finish my story, or I got off track, but I didn't realize that Starter Story was the business that I wanted to build for 2 years. I was actually, even after I got that $12,000 check and stuff like that, I was like, okay, well, this can't be the real business because it's just about entrepreneurship. It needs to be a SaaS product or something like that. So I kept launching stuff on the side, I guess, to try to find something, right? I was still looking for something. And I even launched a SaaS product. It was like a B2B email, not B2B, but like it was like an email plugin CRM product that I worked on for a year and a half. And it took all my focus after I started Starter Story. And I only got it to like $1,500 a month. And it was like, I was like, this is going to be it. Like I started Starter Story. I was successful. Now I'm going to do my next thing. And I tried starting this B2B SaaS product and basically didn't get any traction, but I worked my ass off to do it. And then it was at that moment that I realized, well, building that, both of those, I was building Starter Story and I was making at the time, I don't know, $8,000 a month. And then with this B2B SaaS product, which was called Pigeon, I was making $1,500 a month, but I was putting 80% of my time into that, 20% of my time into Starter Story. And it was at that moment that I realized that, okay, I'm going to cancel this project. I'm just going to stop working on it, and I'm going to go all in on Starter Story. And that was in 2020. So that was 3 years after I started Starter Story. So to answer your question, I was really just, it wasn't really like, oh, it's going up, it's going to be successful if I keep doing it. I was just like kind of doing it just to keep the bills paid. And now looking back, it looks like that was the right, just to keep working on it was right. But I was just doing it because, I don't know, I just felt like an obligation, I guess, to like the readers, or that, I got to get a newsletter out every week. And that would be like what would keep me going.
It's cool. You just listen to the market, really.
Yeah.
And you put out one product, they didn't really respond well to it, even though that was what you really wanted.
Yep.
But tough luck. It's not what they want.
Yep.
So you got to give them what they want, right? And that's like a big part of business.
Yep. Follow the money, right?
Follow the money.
But yeah, it took me 2 years to realize that. If I could have realized that faster, I would have, grown faster or whatever. But I think in hindsight, it looked like I made the right decision quickly, but it took me a year and a half to really figure that, to learn that lesson of business, which we've all learned, I'm sure.
Talk about that real quick, if you will, because I feel like a lot of people in our space, and we're even guilty of this, is having multiple focuses, like trying to work on multiple businesses at the same time, or a side hustle or corporate job, and not going all in on one thing.
Yep.
I feel like that really delays your eventual success.
Yep.
And so maybe talk about like the breakthrough that happened after you made the decision to go in all in on Starter Story. Was it like an instant, like, yeah, this was the right decision, or what did that look like?
Yep. I do agree that there's a lot of people, especially young entrepreneurs or people that are just starting out, they have shiny object syndrome. They want to just keep going. I think that the only way to learn that you shouldn't have that is to learn the hard way, right? To do what I did. But to answer your question, right. It took me a year and a half or whatever, 2 years to come to that decision. But once I finally came to that decision, it was so clear that I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And then revenue doubled in the next month.
Wow.
And then Starter Story. And this luckily was like 2020 pandemic was just happening. And that's when my business blew up, for obviously because I put my full attention into it. But even more so, COVID helped a lot. That was just good luck and timing. So I took the business from, I don't know, 8,000 to 15,000 in a month. And then by the end of the year, we were doing like 50 or 60,000 a month.
Where's that extra revenue coming from? Is that just more ad revenue from your increased viewership? Is that more expensive sponsorship deals? Like, what is the increase coming from?
That was when we first launched the paywall. So I didn't even have a paywall before that. We were just making money through ads, the subscription product, like I was saying. So it came from thinking more about the product and how we can make more money. Where when I was working on the other B2B product, I didn't even like have the mind space to think about that sort of thing. But once I was like, okay, well now I'm thinking about this all day. Okay, we can do this thing, this thing, this thing. And I think that will increase revenue. And we tried like 5 things and one of them worked. And that was it. So yeah, it wasn't really like we got so many more readers. It was like, let's charge more money.
Yeah.
And let's create this new product that people would want to pay for within Starter Story. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, 100%.
I was reading, going back to COVID, just like following your story, because you had like he said earlier, but you do an awesome job of documenting your journey. But it was at some point during COVID, you were like, I just took off and drove with no destination.
Yeah.
And you showed the map and you went in like a giant circle for, I think, 3,000 miles. So just tell that story, because I thought it was super interesting reading.
That was actually, that's perfect timing, because that's the same time that I came up with that decision was on that drive.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it was COVID. I was living at home because I had done the digital nomad thing, but I came back and then COVID happened. So I was just living at home with my mom. I was living with my mom at, what year is this? At 30. And just in a tiny apartment, like, and I think my mom was like, hey, like, she basically told me to get the fuck out of the house. My mom is the nicest person ever, but I think she was just, we were all burned out or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, I heard about this Bill Gates Think Week. You guys ever heard of that?
No.
Where he blocks out the entire week to do nothing but think.
Yep. And he goes to a little house
like a cabin or
on the lake, in Seattle or something like that in Washington. And I was like, all
the
right.
original dopamine reset.
Yep. Yep.
Christian heard Bill Gates and was like, where's my tinfoil hat at?
It's like, how can
Bill
I
Gates,
poison all these
COVID. I was
people?
like, oh, geez, don't get a Steve.
Anyways, I'm not going to.
But yeah, continue.
What about Bill Gates?
Nah, that's a rabbit hole for after.
Okay, yeah, we'll
Not a
talk
fan.
about that in a sec. So I was like, okay, well, this is a good time for me to do a Think Week. And I looked at some cabins and like I couldn't find anything that was cheap. So I was like, all right, let's just get in my car and just drive. I had this cheap Marriott thing because my dad works for Marriott. And it was COVID, so nobody was staying in hotels. So you can stay in any hotel for basically $40 a night. I was like, I'm going to go and just drive and stay in a bunch of hotels. So I drove from Utah, where I was at the time, down through Arizona, Grand Canyon, San Diego, all the way up the California coast to Seattle, basically, for like 2 weeks, just thinking about what I told my business partner, not business partner, but my employee at the time, hey, just handle all email for me, and I'm just going to think. And yeah, I just got in the car, and just the driving was the best part because I couldn't use my phone. And I just thought, and that's when I came to the decision to cancel that project. That was the B2B SaaS project, and go all in on Starter Story.
That's my favorite saying, thinking is working.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like people feel guilty when they're not directly at their laptop doing some form of work. But if you're just taking a walk, working out, playing basketball, playing tennis, golfing, just thinking about work, that's probably the highest ROI form of work you can do, right? Because you're taking yourself out of the business and thinking about what can I do overall to grow it, right?
Yep.
Which I think is impossible to do if you're constantly in the weeds.
Yep. And I really think you do need like more than a day. Because I remember on the first day, I was still like lizard brain, like neurotic, like I got to get back to work. I feel guilty. I'm just thinking about these low-level weeds in the weeds problems. And then the second day and the third day, and by the time I got to the fourth day, I was thinking bigger. I was able to take a step back, right? So I need to do another think week.
And are you on your phone? Are you cranking music on the drive, or like what's like what are you actually doing here?
Yeah, it was just at first, you know, I was like, yeah, I got to listen to audiobooks. I listened to an audiobook and like try to keep my
Trying to stay productive,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You gotta feel like you're doing something.
Exactly.
Right?
And then eventually, yeah, I just went to music and maybe even no music and a lot of just sitting around. And it wasn't even just driving, but just going and like seeing places. And but yeah, it was a lot of silence.
So what was the rest of your trip like? The way you're describing it, you're just driving to a hotel, sitting in your room like a Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat, getting up, getting back in your car. Like, what were some of the most memorable experiences you had? Like, I don't know, Golden Gate Bridge, LA, Seattle. Like, what were some cool experiences you had on that trip?
What's cool is I got to see friends along the way because I have friends in different cities, and I lived in San Francisco and LA. I had a lot of friends in LA and San Diego and all that. So I got to like see people along the way, which is nice. See old friends and that sort of thing. I got to see some new places and see some old places. But a lot of it was just like driving, and I was just going very fast. I wasn't really staying anywhere. I would just drive and then stay the night somewhere and then drive again. So I really didn't like hang out anywhere unless I was seeing someone, I think that was good. I think the driving was the part where I did all the thinking.
So much driving.
Yeah. Because I was just doing a big loop. I was like, all right, well, I'm going all the way here. Like, I'm going to have to get back. And, I was just thinking about when am I going to get back? So I was just a lot of driving.
What type of car were you driving at the time?
It was a Chevy, it's like the CRV of Chevys. I think it's an Equinox. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
It's my mom's car.
Just trying to figure out if, Greta Thunberg, or you were driving a Raptor around town. Just pop out through the window.
What about Greta Thunberg?
Just like if you were driving a Raptor for that
like a
no
truck
reason.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a gas guzzler, so yeah.
That's cool, man. I feel like there's a lot of, especially nowadays, a lot of advocacy for like that dopamine reset and like really just going out and detaching from social media and just all the noise, because that's all it is, right? Like you pick up your phone, you're just bombarded with text messages, news alerts, social media posts, notifications, just creating like clients reaching out to team members reaching out, and it's a lot for like a person to handle. And I don't know, I just feel like a lot of successful stories have originated from like the dopamine. I just think of like McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
He locked himself in like a cabin to write Green Lights, which is probably my most enjoyable read ever.
I haven't read that. It's good.
It's
good.
Unbelievable.
I'm gonna check it out.
And you could just tell like how clear-headed he was while writing that book. It sounds exactly like you'd be having a conversation with the guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know him personally, but I don't think he'd be able to write at that level if he were where he's at now, like in the middle of Austin and surrounded by all the news and media. He's just in a cabin. I think he said he brought like whiskey or something.
Yeah.
A little bit like a whiskey and cigars or something.
Whiskey and like a steak or something like that.
Yeah.
A few steaks.
And like his old
That's
journal.
awesome. I want to do that.
Actually, talk about that. Do you have
I was just gonna say, if you're an audiobook guy, highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Because he does
I
the
love
whole
Audible.
audiobook.
Yeah, that's how
He's got the best voice.
I
got
haven't
the
been reading
best
a lot
voice.
lately, though. I need to get back on my game.
These guys probably judge me for it, but I just don't read. I just can't.
I go
sit
through
down and focus on
phases.
something.
Like I'll read like 6 books in a month, and then I won't read a book for
Yeah.
I read
months.
for fiction though. I don't like.
Yeah?
Well, interesting stuff like the book that inspired Goodfellas. I read, crazy good book,
Really?
way better than the movie.
What's it called?
Wise Guy.
It's a fiction book that inspired.
No, it's a true story actually, but it's about Henry Hill, and then the book inspired the movie about Henry Hill, so it's all from a true story.
You
but
one of those book was better than the movie type guys?
in
Where I
most
can't just
cases,
enjoy the
in most
movie?
cases, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Well, Goodfellas is a great movie.
I was gonna
it's like
say,
a high
that's-
standard
that's
of a
tough.
book.
I read Wise Guy, and then I saw the movie, and I was like, meh. I think it was just
I
because
thought
I knew
Goodfellas
exactly
was
what was going to
okay.
happen.
Okay.
Read the
Yeah.
book.
I'm not a big like
Read the book.
mafia.
Mafia,
Yeah.
monster movie.
I
I
am.
was gonna say it's like it's either you are or you're. It's like,
Yeah.
There's diehards and then there's.
Yeah, yeah,
kinda-
no.
Well, the
Have you
book
seen all the
just is-
Godfathers?
I've seen the first one. No, I'm not a
First
big
one's
mafia
so
guy.
good.
I know.
Yeah.
I really should sit down and give it a full chance. The Godfather.
Oh,
I've watched it,
Classic.
but
Third one, you're not missing out on too much.
Yeah.
Second one I
was
thought was
amazing.
better than the first. To be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
I love movies. I haven't been watching as much lately. Do you guys watch any of the Academy Award stuff?
Nope.
No.
Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, I want to watch that. I
Need to
heard
watch
it's a
that.
great
If you like
Great movie.
mafia, you'll probably like that too.
Yeah.
Have you
That won a
seen
lot of
In
awards.
Bruges, the Colin Farrell movie? Same director
No.
as that.
I haven't seen any of the new movies in a minute. we went to like the Marvel ones, the recent ones, which were terrible.
Yeah, I hate. I do not like Marvel movies.
Creed 3, fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
Going back to the question I had is, you also, a lot of what you do is revolving around writing, and I think that's a big part of obviously like your documentation process throughout the journey when you were starting the business and writing about the SaaS that you were working on that ultimately you phased out of. So like talk about writing, because we have a friend, Dickie Bush, who's built his entire business around the concept of getting people to write online.
Yeah.
And I think in a way you guys are very, very similar, because I read Starter Story and it's very organized. There's formulaic, and it's all about writing. And I just feel like writing is a really underestimated skill set for entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And so maybe talk about that for a minute.
Yep. No. I hate to give so much advice because I haven't been writing as much lately, but I wrote every day on my blog, patwalls.com, for a year and a half. Every single day I wrote a post, and it gained like a little bit of a following, but I haven't been doing as much lately because the business has been taking up more focus. But yeah, I'm a big believer that writing is thinking, is what they say. I do a lot of writing, even just for business. Like if you want to just, you ever heard of Amazon's writing culture? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at Amazon, Jeff Bezos is like he said no PowerPoints. He said PowerPoints are illegal in the company. You cannot do a PowerPoint. Everything is written. You have to, if you want to propose, or if you go to a meeting, they don't just have like bullshit meetings there. The meetings are based around basically what they call a 6-pager, and it's writing exactly what this feature or this improvement or whatever they're going to do. They do a full writing analysis. So if you're going to propose to change something in the company, you have to write 6 pages about it. And then in the meeting, they sit there in the meeting, and then for 15 minutes, everyone's quiet, sitting around a table or whatever, and they're putting comments. They're roasting this thing, right? And I think that's like a good, like, I guess, explanation of why writing is so important. It's like you can say something that you want to do, or you can think something that you want to do. But if you write something that you want to do, it will give you so much more insight or details or clarity around what you want to do, right? So anything, you could be writing, hey, I want to grow my business and do SEO. Yeah, that's cool. You can do that, but go and write about it. Write 2 pages about how you're going to do that. Or if what I was doing just more like on my blog. I would write every day, and that was like giving me clarity about whatever I was going through in that day, or like the struggles of building a business. That really did help too. Like you said earlier, like the ups and downs, or like not sure if it's gonna, if it's gonna work out or whatever. If you just write those thoughts down, then you'll probably come to the conclusion that, yeah, it is worth it, or maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And that helped me make the decision too, to drop that business. Was a lot of writing. I was writing every day at the time.
And it's such a healthy exercise for you. And it's kind of sad because it's getting easier and easier to go on with life without writing at all. Mm-hmm. Like I'm picturing the Amazon example, and nowadays you just log on and be like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a 6-page essay on why we should unionize and send it to Mr. Bezos.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, project done.
It's crazy when you think about it. Like, yeah, I think ChatGPT is amazing, but if you don't sit there and write it out, I think you're doing yourself. I use ChatGPT all the time, so I can't really say that, but you'll lose that thinking thing, or like that clarity piece, if you just write it.
Because I feel like when you're writing, you're actively thinking about like, okay, how am I coming across?
It's why it's so valuable. Yeah. It's not the end product.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's forcing you to take perspective on your opinion.
Yeah.
So you don't go back to like throughout your journal and you're like, it's not an end product really. It's the process of journaling or dumping your thoughts on paper to really flesh out an idea.
Yeah. And it's not even just the writing, it's also the editing and the revising. So writing is great to get it out on paper, but then when you start going through it, especially something that you're going to publish, going through it and combing through it and cutting down and rewriting, like the best writers. I'm a big fan of Paul Graham. You guys know Paul Graham?
Oh yeah. He was Y Combinator?
Yeah, he started Y Combinator, and he's known for his essays. Don't do things that don't scale. That's like one of his famous essays. All of his essays, and he has essays on writing too, what he says about writing is you just rewriting and revising and editing and cutting down, getting feedback, rewriting until you really have like a a point or an argument that is
something worth saying, right?
Yeah, yeah. And ChatGPT, you'll never get that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you'll never know how it got that, which
Yeah.
I think is also
Yeah.
a really important piece. One thing I want to transition into is more of like entrepreneurship 101 in a way. So I think I saw something about like the 24-hour startup.
Oh, yeah.
That you did with was that with Product Hunt?
I didn't do it with Product Hunt, but it was the days of you guys probably before your time, yeah, when Product Hunt was big.
Oh no, I was on that. That
Yeah?
was like the #1 source for me, like in 2018,
Yep.
like back then.
Yep.
Oh, I love that shit. I would go on every single day. And
Yeah,
that's
those-
how I heard about all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot to mention that earlier as what was an inspiration for me, but Product Hunt was big.
Hunt.
That was big back then. That was like, I don't know, what's the Product Hunt of today?
I think Product Hunt is still pretty big.
No, it's not as big anymore. But there's like
You still crush it with a
Twitter.
Product Hunt launch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twitter is like what Product Hunt used to be.
And-
Twitter is
yeah.
so big now.
It's almost like Morning Brew too.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yep.
I compared those two. I actually heard about Morning Brew through Product Hunt.
Oh, yeah?
It was like product of the day or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, so Entrepreneurship 101. So maybe talk about the reason I bring in the 24-hour startup concept is because for our audience, I think we have you here. And one of the values in that is you've seen so many different business concepts and success stories that there's got to be some trend or at least a few lessons that you've seen that people have done that have led to success in entrepreneurship that you might be able to share with someone that's either thinking of going into entrepreneurship or they're in it and they're just not seeing the traction they want just yet. So maybe talk on that topic for a little bit.
Yeah. Let me find on my phone. I have a list that I like
let's
to go over.
A love list.
There's like 6 things that I like to say what makes a good business idea. Let me find it real quick.
Yeah, this is going to be good. I could already tell.
Okay. It's not necessarily an exhaustive list or anything like that, but if you're in this, like people that are looking for a business idea, their first business idea.
Yep.
Okay. So your first business, okay, there's 6 things. I'll go over the 6 and then I'll go through each one. Number 1, it takes advantage of your existing skills and knowledge. Number 2, you're passionate about it. Number 3, it's some sort of new trend or hidden opportunity. Number 4, there's no competition, or you can build something that has no competition. So like a personal monopoly. It's very niche and people will pay for it. Those are my 6 things. So the first one is takes advantage of your skills and knowledge. A lot of people want to go and they're really good at, let's say, writing, or they're good at Excel, I don't know, something like that. And then they want to go start an e-commerce business because that's what they hear on Twitter, or they hear some guy who's making lots of money in e-commerce. Okay, yeah, you're going to go there. You don't have any skills in e-commerce. How are you going to build this business? Like, you can still build that business, but it's going to take you a year or 2 to learn those baseline skills, and you're just going to be behind by a year or 2.
Yeah.
Where if you go, say Excel, and you go and start a business around Excel, boom, you're already primed up, ready to go to make money with this existing skill or knowledge that you have. And that's the mistake that I made too. I started previously with the B2B business, the first B2B business, I didn't have any skills or knowledge about building a B2B company or anything like that. So it didn't even work. So that's the first thing, is that like, if you do, you'll just be faster if you do something where you have existing skills or knowledge about a thing. So if you know a lot about marketing, or you know a lot about golf, or you know a lot about some sort of topic, if you can build around that.
Cigars,
Yeah.
Podcasts.
Otherwise, you're going to go learn about the topic, and that's going to take 6 months to a year, right? No one's going to learn anything in 1 month.
Yeah, and I think one interesting thing there for the audience is like a lot of people overthink that step of like it has to be something like business oriented. It really doesn't, right? It could be cigars, it could be podcasts, it could be Starbucks coffee, it could be Marvel movies, like any of this stuff, right?
Yep. So that's usually the first mistake that people make. I think a lot of people just make that mistake anyway. And even when you tell people that to do that, they still won't do it. They'll still go start the thing that they heard the other guy online being successful of. So even though I give this advice, you're probably going to make this mistake anyway. I did, at least. The second one is that you're passionate about it. That's like, that'll keep you going in the times where, like, for example, I started Starter Story. I was passionate. Okay, before I started Starter Story, I wanted to start a blog, right? This is after, when I was on my own, I wanted to do something on my own. It's like, okay, I'll start a blog about pets, because that can be a good niche. I didn't have pets at the time, and I started it, and then I quit after about 4 weeks because I wasn't passionate about it, right? I didn't even care about the content we were making or anything like that. So I switched the topic to be about entrepreneurship, which I've always been passionate about. And I love, reading indie hackers, for example, and stuff like that. And that'll keep you going in the times where, you're in month 2, month 3, and you're not making any money. That will keep you going. So it's like really just doing something that prevents you from not quitting. That's like, if you can find a business that you can start where you're not going to quit, because that's another big thing, is that a lot of people they get shiny object syndrome, and they just stop doing it. When if you just kept doing it, then you might have been successful. Okay, new trend or hidden opportunity. If you can build something in AI, there's a saying called rising tide lifts all boats. So even if you have a shitty product that doesn't even work, you're still going to probably be successful in AI right now because...
Or at least be able to raise some money.
Yep, exactly. Because there's no competition because it's so new. And there's a lot of people that are just wanting to just get your thing. If you create something that's not in a new trend, let's say you create, I don't know, a DTC e-commerce business on something that's traditional, there's not going to be like new people. You're competing with these more established people that have been in the game for 5-10 years. Or if it's a hidden opportunity, that's a little harder to find, I think. But if there's something like, I don't know, a new trend will often cause a hidden opportunity, or it's hard.
I was going to say the fact that you're having a hard time explaining it.
Yeah.
Shows exactly what it is, right? It's not supposed to be.
Exactly. Easy. So if like that goes back to the knowledge thing. If you know of this little weird thing at your job where there's no good software that does it, or there's no good content around this thing, if you can do it, that's a hidden opportunity. You only know it because you're in this weird niche position where you work at a cigar lounge and there's not good cigar lounge software. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a hidden opportunity.
I feel like people think that opportunity has to be very macro when it could be very, very targeted towards one thing, like how to, I don't know, a lighter refiller device. Like something as specific as that could crush way more than the next, Nike or Rolex or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. And that goes to my next point, is that it's niche. Something that's niche, obviously that's a mistake that I made in the beginning, and a lot of people will make, is like they're worried that there's only 10 people that will buy their thing, when that's a good sign that there's only like 10 people that you could think of that would buy your thing, because there will always be more people that want to buy it. You're just not thinking big enough about the whole world, right? You can sell something to 10 people in Tampa. It means you can sell something to 10 people in Miami and whatever. So that's one. I really like the no competition one. That's my fourth or fifth point, is like, have you ever read 0 to 1, Peter Thiel?
Peter Thiel.
Yeah. Love that book.
Yep. It's all about monopolies and why monopolies are the best businesses you can start, because you have no competition, and competition is for losers. That's the other thing he says. If you can find something, and that's a little bit, I think, is there another website like Starter Story? No. There's not another website that has 4,000 case studies about how to build a business. So when we write our copy or our offer or whatever, I'm not saying we're the most successful business in the world, but we're not competing with anyone. There's no one else who's going to, there are competitors and stuff like that, but we can position our product in a way that's, there's no one else like us, right? And I think personal monopoly also goes to or no competition is like authors and people that start like movements. Like Dickie Bush is a good example. Like there's no other Dickie Bush. There's no other James Clear. There's no other, I don't know, Russell
Cold
Brunson.
Email wizard.
Right, exactly. There's no competition. So brand is a way to establish if you yourself, and that's something that I need to get better at, is like using yourself as part of the product, because no one can compete with you.
Yeah.
And then the last one is that people will pay, and that's an obvious one. But a lot of people create businesses where
Tim Ferriss talks about that one a lot.
Where no one will pay for it, right? You're making a business about, I don't know, online content or cooking or something like that.
It's like the biggest mistake in like target market research is like you ask people if they like it, they're like, yeah, but you forget to ask if they'd paid for it, because it's such a big difference.
Yep.
It's like.
So those are my 6 things. Sorry for rambling on.
Masterclass. Like I said, I tried to set it up as like a startup masterclass for people that want to get into business or are in business
Yeah.
and just better understand it. So that was sweet.
I want to talk about. So you spent time in San Francisco. You said you're from Texas, I believe.
So I've been all over. My dad worked in hotel industry, so I born in Texas, moved to California, moved to Arizona. Wyoming is where I spent my formative years in high school. And then I went to school in Southern California. Then I went to San Francisco. Then I went to New York. Then I went digital nomad. So I went to Thailand, Bali. That's where I met like Peter Levels and those guys. And then I went back home. And then now I'm in Tampa.
Wow.
So all over.
What brought you down here?
Yeah. Why are you in Tampa?
My girlfriend. She's a resident. She's trained to be a doctor.
Very cool.
So the residencies you can't really like pick where you go, I guess. But she was down here and she's here for 6 years. And I was in New York at the time, and it was during COVID. And we had known each other previously, and we just started talking again. She's like, yeah, I live in Tampa. I was like, all right, can I come down there? We weren't dating at the time. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, so I just flew down here.
You can't really go around in COVID in New York. Can I come to Tampa?
Pretty much. Yeah, no, like the whole lockdown thing was terrible.
Terrible.
And I got to Florida, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then never left. Really.
How does Tampa stack up to the other places you've lived?
I love New York City. I was just there, and the energy there is unmatched for what I was looking for in the time that I was there. But Florida is like, what I love about Florida is that there's no rules, or like there's no rule enforcement.
There's more freedom.
Freedom. Yeah, exactly. And like, it's like a random thing to say, but like, I've never been pulled over.
I've noticed that. I grew up in upstate. We all grew up in New York. I would drive home from a dinner. There'd be like six state troopers, 3 people pulled over.
Yeah.
I like in Florida, you don't see people pulled over
Yeah.
like ever.
Everyone's minding their own business
Yeah.
here, Like in New York, I remember I was like, we were out at a park for someone's birthday, just like drinking wine or something like that, just like public park, something you do. And like cops came up and wrote us a ticket for drinking in public. And like in Florida, you could just like
You just walk down the street with a White Claw and no one says anything.
And like cops like don't. It's a random example to say why I like Florida.
That's
Yeah.
so true.
But it's
The small things.
a more representation of like the freedom and like
Well, just COVID is the definition of why
Yeah.
Florida's more free.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's probably like that in Texas too, I'd imagine.
I was so young
Okay,
that
gotcha.
I only lived there till I was like 5 years old. But yeah,
I feel like Texas, everybody has a gun,
Yeah.
so they're like, I'm just
yeah.
gonna mind my
But
own
Florida and
business.
Texas are similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
trying to convince my friends are a little uppity. They're like, the New York. Like I tell them I moved to Tampa. They're like, what the fuck's in Tampa? But
More Miami vibe, probably.
yeah. But a few of them have visited here and they love it. So
Yeah.
no, I love it here though, man.
Yeah.
It's dope. What do you guys think?
It's a good spot.
Yeah, I love
Big
it.
Tampa guys.
The weather, obviously, coming from New York was a
Yes.
big factor for us. Also, taxes
Yeah.
was a giant factor as well. But yeah, just in general, the vibe in Tampa specifically, it's just very clean. It's very safe. It's growing a lot, which is nice. Like at this point in my life, I don't want to be in a city that's like stagnant or on its way
Yeah.
out. Like it's
Yeah.
cool to be living in a place where
Yeah.
there's a restaurant opening down the street, like
Yeah.
pretty much every week.
Yeah.
Where we're
It's
at,
cool to
so.
be a part of something that's growing
Yeah.
and be early on something that's is going
Because
to be
people
big.
are like, "What's in Tampa?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "Wait till you see."
Yeah,
it. And
exactly.
It's like cool to show people
Yeah.
because they're
I-
always shocked.
And it's so easy to network with like the people who
Yeah.
actually own and like run things around here. Like it's super accessible.
Less of a hierarchy almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's just like easier to kind of like see the path where you could kind of like move up the social ladder here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to be early on things, just generally speaking.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to be early on trends, and like I pride myself on
Yeah,
being
same.
like, yeah.
You
being
remember
like-
remember those Roshi runs?
no, what's that?
It's the
Ni-
most
the
niche
sneakers?
example.
It's like a
ever.
Nike shoe that by like
Oh, Roches. Yeah.
Roches,
okay.
Roches.
Yeah.
But like I had the first pair in 10th grade, and then I show up for the first day in 11th grade, and everyone's got them. I'm like, I had those. I already had those.
I'm the same way about everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And then once everyone has them, like I don't want
Yes,
them anymore.
exactly. I quit drinking, and now like it's becoming like a thing that
Like, I'm gonna
people-
start drinking.
that stop drinking. So I'm gonna start drinking.
Okay,
again.
so what's one thing now that you're early on, if you want to let us in on?
I quit caffeine.
That's
That's bold. Would you replace it with anything?
No.
Damn.
A little bit of nicotine here and
There
there.
you go. Yeah. I was gonna say.
But I did that. I don't know if I'm gonna do it forever.
so you wake up. Then
Yeah.
what?
Just ready to
What
go.
happens
You must like
next?
take
Yeah.
a cold shower or something.
No. Once you quit after the first 2-3 months, you don't need anything. Like you just wake up with constant.
I think about that, but then I started drinking coffee in college, and we used to do a podcast like freshman year, and he'd be like, "Dude, why are you so tired all the time?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then I started drinking coffee. I'm like, "Holy shit!" So I know what I would go back to if I stopped, and I'm like, "I'm good." I don't know.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Also, just like the act of going to a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Something about like, okay, like this symbolizes like I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna relax.
Yeah.
And when I come back,
Stop, bro. You're gonna get him back on it.
Sometimes I don't even want.
I still like coffee shops. Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I don't
I get
even
tea.
want the coffee. I want the act of going to a coffee shop.
exactly,
I'm like,
because
I
you're
have
like,
to
I
have
know
coffee.
like I'm gonna take this time in the morning, but when I get back, that's when I start work. And that's
Yeah.
like more of a ritual
Yeah.
for me. I'm also hopelessly addicted to it, so I'm not
Yeah.
getting off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. I'll go and get tea. But what I like about it is like with coffee, you kind of structure your, like, let's say like, oh, if I want to work for a couple hours, let me get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But you have more, without caffeine, you have more constant energy levels where you're not
Yeah.
like, you don't have to like focus for just a
Sprint.
couple hours. Yeah. You don't have to sprint. It's harder to wake up in the morning and get right to work. That's one thing that I do miss. But now my energy levels are so constant that I can just like I feel like I'm more productive in the grand scheme.
Overall,
It's like
yeah.
Adderall. You guys ever take Adderall?
No.
That was big in college. And like, I feel like the people that did Adderall, like to study
Oh my god.
they would like study harder for like 4 hours. But the people that were like got better grades or like did better were the ones that were study like less.
My roommates
more
were the types
consistent.
that were like, I have a test in 24 hours. I'm just going to study for a day straight. And I'm like,
That was me.
God bless you.
Awesome.
That's crazy stuff.
This has been a lot of fun. We're gonna wrap it pretty soon here, but not before we do the lightning round, which is like the last segment of our show that we're bringing back. We actually invented it when Christian and I did a podcast way back in college, and the questions are just a lot of fun, and so we brought it back randomly.
I have a new question. I'm inventing a new one.
You're inventing a new one.
I'm
So that's kind of
inventing
like
a
the
new
point
one.
of the lightning round is just come up with any cool question you can think of. You want to start with your new question?
New invention. So you're familiar with golf?
Yep.
If you win the Masters the following year, you get to make a menu for a dinner, like entree, appetizer,
Good
dessert.
one.
If you could make a Masters champions dinner, what would be your appetizer, entree, dessert?
God, I'm really bad at answering this shit.
Yeah, these ones are funny. If you go back and listen to our old podcast
Yeah.
interviews, like it'd be like 5-minute gaps before someone answered, and we wouldn't edit any of it out. So like people would be like, "Yo, is this broke?" It's like, no, the guest is just thinking, bro.
So, okay. And it's purely for me or is like
No, whatever your favorite foods, basically.
my favorite
Yeah,
foods?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
You're not pandering to anybody.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Wait,
No,
no. It's just
Appetizer, entree, dessert.
Appetizer,
Appetizer,
That's what it is,
entree,
yeah.
dessert. Okay. God, man, it's so hard. I'll give you my entree would be like fucking steak for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It'd be like strip steak. I recently just got really into steak. I didn't eat meat for like 6 years.
Wow.
Didn't eat red meat for 6 years, but I recently got into steak in the last year.
Welcome back.
So yeah, and it's so damn good.
so good.
It's so good.
Appetizer. God, what's a typical appetizer?
Calamari.
That
Mozzarella
was
sticks.
exactly.
I don't
Those
know.
were the two
That's
that I had in
that's
my
actually what came to mind, like calamari.
mozzarella sticks and calamari.
Bruschetta.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
let me
Italian
let me
guy.
try to give you a good answer though.
Appetizer's a tough one. I don't know.
Okay, random one. Miso soup.
Okay. Nice.
Warming up the
Yeah.
stomach for the steak. Okay.
Yeah. It's really random. Miso soup, then steak.
I'm also just like the fat guy who's like chicken wings. They count as an appetizer.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It's actually
Mozzarella
a really good
sticks
one.
are a great appetizer.
Mod sticks, yeah.
You gotta have a favorite.
Now the
dessert.
most important
Favorite dessert, of course. Yeah, I'm a big cookie guy. So chocolate chip cookie, like salted on top.
Oh,
ice
That's it.
cream,
No, just
No?
cookie.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair
I'll take some ice cream on it, but
like a little cookie sandwich.
oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. I've been trying to not eat so much sugar though lately. That's another thing.
You
I've
are
been kinda-
very.
yeah. I barely eat sugar. I haven't
Dude, it
eaten
feels-
a lot of sugar. In
How
a
do you
while.
feel?
Way better.
Yeah.
And the only bad thing about it is is like when you do want to enjoy like a little bit of dessert. Like it was my birthday not too long ago, and I had a bunch of dessert, and I was like, oh, I feel like
Yo, happy
shit.
birthday, man.
This was weeks ago. But at this point, it's like when this actually releases is like 2 months ago. But thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I think sugar is really addictive. And like if you feel like once you have every meal, you feel like you got to have sweet after it.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to have some sugar here and there for your birthday or whatever. It's not, you're not gonna get re-addicted to it.
Yeah.
But I've been avoiding it. It's been helping with energy levels and like weight loss and stuff like that. But I'm old. You guys, the thing is, you guys don't have to worry about any of this shit. 'Cause once you turn 30, then like it gets harder to sleep. It gets harder to get energy. So
I don't know. I've noticed hangovers getting worse. So
yeah,
I'm like,
hangovers, right?
That's
Yep. But you guys don't have to worry about that shit for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next question we like to ask is and this is actually one of the questions I forgot to ask, is like dream guest, but it's baked into this one, is if you could have that master's dinner, I guess, just putting you back into this scenario with 3 other people, who would you pick?
3 people?
Anyone.
3 people though.
dead or alive.
Dead or alive?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Kanye.
Let's go. I love that answer. I love that answer.
And I have a story about how I met Kanye too.
Whoa.
I love hip hop, so that comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, that was a quick one, so that definitely.
Yeah. I'm thinking like athletes. Probably like Roger Federer. I think that would be really
So
cool. And then an entrepreneur. God, my answer's gonna suck. I know I'm gonna look back and want a better answer. But I'd give a lame answer, say Elon.
It's pretty cool, though.
That would be.
Pretty cool. But how did you meet Kanye? Or did
So,
you say you met Kanye?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a buddy who worked for Kanye before his whole loss of clarity in the last month or year or whatever. And so he's just doing like production for Kanye, basically just helping him. And he used to have a ranch in Wyoming. I used to live in Wyoming. So I was back home in Wyoming and my buddy was like, hey, I'm in Wyoming working with Kanye. Do you want to come out for a week and work with the team? Damn. So I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I can't pass up this opportunity. This was only like 2 years ago or something like that.
Wow.
So I drove like 5 hours to Kanye's ranch and basically like helped out, just bullshit, like driving people around and setting up stage and production stuff and yeah, getting coffee, just being like bitch work.
How was he to be around?
He was yeah, super intense. He's shorter than you think. So like when I was standing next to him, he's like shorter than me, so it was really weird. But yeah, he at the time he had like a team of like 100 people, so he was managing like a whole team of 100 people, and basically like in front of me, like all these people are joining his team, and he saw me, and he like didn't know who I was, so he went to my buddy. He's like, "Hey, I'm Kanye," and like we shook hands, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a big fan," etc. And then he immediately turns to my buddy, and he's like, "I don't want you adding any new people to my team unless I get my explicit approval."
You're probably like,
I was like,
shit.
"Oh fuck, he doesn't like me." So that was my first
Was Kim
first
Kardashian
impression.
there?
She was, but I didn't see her, but she was there. Yeah.
How could you miss
That's
that thing?
awesome, man.
And then I helped him find like a house to rent, and then he was like really appreciative and like patted me on the back. So I was like, "Ah, that's cool."
That's awesome. Yeah, did you hear stories like when you meet guys like that? Like they're just so focused.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so focused. Which
It
is cool.
was so funny. He was like, they had a bunch of rental cars, just like Escalades or something like that. And like a couple of them were white, and he's like, "I don't want any white Escalades. I only want black Escalades." So they had to go back and re-rent new cars. He's like, "I want them all lined up like this. I want it to look like Mad Max." He doesn't like, he
lives in a different
Yeah,
dimension.
exactly. He's like, the way you see him on TV is the same person that he is in real life. And like, he doesn't think about things in terms of like, okay, let's grow this business or let's improve this product. It's like, he's thinking about the vibe.
Yeah.
He's thinking about the vibe of everything. Like he wants certain cars lined up in a certain
Did he have
way.
any other famous people coming through? Like I remember during COVID, he had Dave Chappelle out there a couple times.
I didn't-
Cuddy had to be out there at that time because they were working on something.
Yeah, he was recording at the time. So they had a couple people, but one of the basketball players, Rick Fox, was out there. There's a couple of random people.
Yeah.
There wasn't any like super. I was only there for 1 week. But yeah.
That's so dope.
Still, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
You got the next one?
Can I just make my own up right now? Because I don't
If
know
you
the lightning
want.
round. Okay. all right, I feel like Bezos has come up like 3 times. So let's say Mr. Jeff Bezos walks in. He's like, starter story's mine. Here's $100 million. What does the next 24 hours look like? Like, what are you doing to celebrate? Are you just relaxing with a girl? Are you going crazy? Like, what do you do?
$100 million.
Assuming you accept the offer.
Yeah, probably drink again.
Yeah. he's having an espresso martini, so he's going back into drinking coffee.
I'd get a private jet, pick up all my friends, and then just go fucking rage.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
He's like, I'm done optimizing for all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine.
That's awesome, man.
Well,
that's really it. So
sorry for
I guess
rambling on.
No,
That
that
was
was
great.
great,
This
man.
was
We could sit here all night and talk, but the last question really is, where can our first off, thank you for being on the show and sharing everything that you shared today. It was super insightful, and I had a good time. I know these guys had a good time as well.
too. Thank you. I was super nervous when I started, and then
Dude, as soon as Scott's like, you guys are good, it's always just like, all right.
It's way better to do it in person.
Yeah.
I can't stand doing podcasts over Zoom.
Yeah, it's too much going on.
Yeah.
You get a notification come up on your screen,
Yeah.
you can't really focus.
Yeah.
But for our audience out there, I'm sure they're now fans of you now if they weren't already. And so where can they find you, follow you, and just continue to watch your journey unfold?
Yeah, I'm big on Twitter, so you can just search Pat Walls, should come up on Google and Twitter. And then, Starter Story, you can Google that too. And that's pretty much it.
And there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience as well. So if they have what they think is qualified as a starter story, where can they go to submit that or tell you more about it?
Yep. You can go to our website, starterstory.com/share. Yeah, we'd love to share your story. And you can do that. And
Awesome, man.
Awesome, man.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, bro.
Cool.
Appreciate it, bro.
Appreciate
That was
it.
awesome.
Fist bump.